Hi, I'm Dr. Langley. I am a doctor, a family doctor here at Pine Ridge Family Medicine in Colorado Springs, and I also happen to be a lactation consultant, and I love helping women to reach their breastfeeding goals. So I wanted to come on today and talk about something that I consider myself a bit of an expert on, which is pumping at work. So when you are first pregnant and thinking about breastfeeding and wondering how all this is going to work, there's a lot to think about, and I'm not going to be able to cover all of that in one video. This is going to be pretty basic of, okay, you've decided you want to breastfeed, you know you're going to go back to work, you're thinking about that plan. You even get the box in the mail or from the store of your pump and you're trying to figure out how this is all going to work. So that's what I'm trying to address today. If you have other questions or concerns that I don't address, man, I love talking about breastfeeding. So please leave a comment, go onto our Facebook page or here on the YouTube page, and I'll make a video about it or respond right there. So you're thinking about having to pump at work. I mean, I've done this for over 4 years now, and it can be tricky. I mean, I was starting this when I was in medical school, so I had to have the conversation every single month as I was working with a different doctor's office about, hi, nice to meet you. I need a place to pump breast milk. I just said breast to someone that I've just met. It's awkward, but you can do it. I know you can. And it's something that needs to be talked about more in society because this is a fact of life of women that are having babies. It's important to be able to breastfeed if that's what you want to do. So you have that conversation. I know it's hard, but I've done it. I've been there. You're not alone. I did it every single month in med school, and then I went to residency, and I was pumping in this big room. It was full of doctors and medical professionals, so they should know better, but it was still awkward sometimes. It was a big room of cubicles, and I would sit there and pump, and I would be covered up by my nursing cover. It's one that my friend made. It was wonderful of her. And I would just be pumping here. No one could really see anything unless they really tried, but they didn't. And I'd be typing away or having conversations with people about patients and that kind of thing. And I made it work. So that's a possibility. If that's your situation, it can work. And I enjoyed it. I think I educated a lot of my colleagues about what it was like to pump and what the sounds were and what kind of things I dealt with on a daily basis of providing breast milk for my baby. Then I went on to my first being a doctor in the real world for the first place and was sharing an office. And my nurse was very understanding about it, but there were still awkward moments and keeping the door closed versus putting the cover on. It was tough choices. And now I've got my own office at Pine Ridge Family Medicine, and that's pretty phenomenal. But I've also worked in other places with ununderstanding doctors and having to going to a big testing center for a big exam and having to ask about pumping there and where I could and being in a closet. I don't think I've ever actually pumped in a bathroom, which is good because that's gross. I've traveled in airports and I've pumped in those little, like sometimes in airports, they'll have the computer cubicles, which will just barely be covered on either side. And I pumped there. I thought that was a comfortable place to pump. I've pumped on trains and in train stations. Then I would usually just find a little corner and use my cover. So yeah, I've been there. I've done it. You can do it too. So let's say you are getting this thing in the mail or have bought it from the store, something like that. There's all sorts of different kinds of breast pumps. So what are you going to choose? Well, it depends on how often you'll be away from baby and what you need to use this for. If you just want a pump that you can express a little bit of milk and it's really convenient, you could just hand express, which means here's my little pretend boob. You can actually, women have done this for thousands of years of being able to get milk out to give in a bottle for someone else to give just by mushing on their breast. So you can massage your breast and milk will come out. I mean, you have to get good at it. You have to, just like any other kind of massage, it takes some practice to know where to press and how to press. And we can talk about that sometime in the future. But you can do that and express into like a Tupperware container, something with a wide mouth at the top that kind of collects it and you pour it into a bottle after you get enough and you keep doing it. Your hands get tired though if you have to do that every single day for long periods of time. So something kind of in between that and a full pump might be a little hand pump. So it doesn't actually go on this one. Sorry if that's confusing. But this is a little pump that you can change how it pumps. You can pump here or you can pump here depending on what you want the suction to be like. This would be kind of lighter, faster suckling imitation, whereas this would be to get more milk out. You can kind of press on it more. Your hand still gets tired, but if it's once in a while, or if you're not comfortable with hand expressing, then that's a good option. But then there's the common one if you're going back to work full time. And then you need a double electric breast pump, meaning that you can do both breasts at the same time. So it has 2 tubes and it's hooked to an electrical thing that provides the suction. And there's a wide variety of brands out there. There's not one that stands out as being better. It kind of depends on what you're going to be doing. So this is my Spectra, which happens to be a dual voltage. So that was handy when I was living in Germany and needed to be able to plug into a 220 volt outlet without needing a giant transformer with me. So that's why I have that one. I also have a Hygieia, which I like because you can recycle this one. You can give this to other women to use. You just unscrew this part and it has a fancy filter thing. Most pumps are intended just for one mom at a time to use, or one mom ever to use, because there's a possibility that you can get milk into the actual motor and they're not willing, the company doesn't want to guarantee that that doesn't happen, and there's the concern of getting other people's milk in your milk. So and then I know Medela is a really common, popular option. That's a great option. I've used those too. But mostly what you need is it to be electric, because that way your hands don't get super tired doing this 3-4 times a day. And it needs to be double so that you can do both breasts at the same time, both for efficiency and because your breasts will actually kind of work better if one side is being stimulated at the same time as the other. So that's what these are. You've got your pumps and you've got your tubes. These tubes are what create the suction. What it's doing on your breast is creating a little suction and letting go, a little suction and letting go. And over the course of a nursing or a feeding or a pumping session, it's going to change a little bit. So usually when babies first latch on, they do a quick, fast, very light suckling, and that's what stimulates your milk to let down or come out. Then as that milk starts coming out faster, they'll switch to a stronger but longer prolonged, if that makes sense, suction. So sucking in and let go, and in and let go kind of thing. So that's what these pumps are trying to imitate. There's different ways that those settings work. Sometimes they automatically switch from the faster and weaker suckling to the slower and stronger suckling. Sometimes you have to manually change it so you can adjust just how strong you can handle it that day. You want it to be strong enough that it's drawing milk out and maybe just a tad bit you can feel it, but you don't want it to be painful. Breast pumping should not be painful. Next, so you've got your pump, you look at the buttons, you play with the buttons, that's all cool. Then you look at these things and they're kind of crazy looking. What is this? So different parts of your breast pump. Sometimes this comes off, sometimes this doesn't, but this is called a flange. And this is what actually sits on your breast. And it goes on your breast like that so that the nipple can be pulled into that little tunnel right there. And it can be tricky to figure out what size of flange you need. So bigger nipples need bigger flanges, and smaller nipples need smaller flanges. But the tricky part is that sometimes even over the course of nursing, your nipples can change size. So don't be surprised if you might need to have a different size flange over the course of time. They even sell like flexible plastic flanges that aren't made of solid plastic right here, but rather softer plastic that can be more accommodating for the change in your nipples that is naturally happening as even over the course of a single nursing session. So that's what these are, and it draws the nipple up into that tube a little bit. And the goal is to not be painful. So you want it to be filling that tube, but not squished into that tube. It's going to be pulled into the tube and look squished. It's hard to describe, and there's lots of pictures of what it should and should not look, and even those aren't particularly helpful sometimes. So sometimes I just say, try out what comes with your pump and see if it's comfortable. And if it's not, look around for another one, or maybe even buy a set of them, or ask around for a friend. These ones you can sterilize in the microwave, so it's reasonable to try out a friend's for a little while and see if that size works better for you. So that's what this is. And then on the bottom part is what allows the milk to go through into the bottle and not be pulled back up. So this is a little valve here. It can either be a duck bill kind of valve, and I don't know if you can see that opens at the end so the milk can drop out this way and then not go back the other way, and the suction can be generated still while letting that milk fall through into the bottle. Or it can have a little white membrane that sits on top of the device, and that's what lets the milk come through but lets the suction be generated when it needs to. So all pumps have that, and those are probably the most fallible parts of the pump. These can get worn down. They're fairly delicate little pieces of rubber, plastic, silicone, something like that. And those are the parts that you need to have extras of. I'd say all the time whenever you're pumping, have a couple extras of either the membrane or those little white duck bills, because those can break and fall apart or get something stuck in it. And those are a big trouble if you don't have extras of those. So I highly recommend having those. The rest, you can get by without, but those are pretty key. Then the milk gets pushed down into a bottle or into, there's all sorts of different options. You can have plastic bottles that come with your pump. There's glass bottles. There's different sizes of these sometimes. So I've collected over the years all sorts of little different devices for converting one size to the other so it all is compatible. It's all very exciting. I'm getting my actual pumping bag out here so you can see exactly what I have in here. Sometimes there's other little adapters to make it adapt to different size nipples for when you're feeding baby. That's good, but not super handy for at work. See, I told you I have extra little duckbill size things in here. There's even adapters so you could pump straight into a plastic bag. So this is a little adapter that you can hook on. Sorry about that. It's straight into a plastic bag, so you can ziplock that and put it in your fridge and pour that into a bottle for baby later. So these are all okay. I mean, if it works out for you better to have plastic bags than bottles to store milk in, that's cool. No worries about that. There's no strict rules about that. You'll kind of feel what you like best. It even changes from baby to baby and situation to situation with me. It's also common to have other storage bags that you can pour your milk into. They freeze really well is one of the benefits of those bags. You can freeze them flat in little bricks, but don't get hung up on having a giant freezer stash of milk. It's a common trap to get pulled into. They sell, there's all sorts of extras that you can have. This bottle to pump into is a basic thing that you need for pumping, but there's, as always, lots of little extras that they like to sell, and sometimes they make life easier and sometimes they don't. So most of the time after you're done pumping, you pour your milk into a collection bag or a bottle that you like to take home, and then you clean all your parts off. Usually using hot water and some dish soap is my favorite way. If you have a preemie or some health problems for your baby, it's a good idea to do a more thorough cleaning. They have those nice plastic vacuum microwave sterilizers that you load your stuff into and follow the directions and microwave it, or they have cool little bags that can do a similar thing that are easier to keep at work and just fold up and put away when you're not using them. That's good for little itty bitty babies and babies that are having health problems, being sure to clean off your equipment a little more thoroughly for them. But for your everyday healthy newborn, just soap and water usually does sufficiently. What else do I have in my bag? I have some lanolin just in case I get some chapped areas that hurt, but that happens fairly rarely, especially now that I'm pretty established in my pumping. Oh, sorry, my light just turned off. Let me see if I can get that to turn back on again while I'm looking through this. Sometimes I'll have a onesie from my baby. Turn back on. That can help you, especially in the early days as you're getting used to pumping and letting down for a machine instead of your baby, to smell or look at pictures on your phone or videos on your phone of your baby. That can help your body to respond to the pump as if it were a baby, because this is not a baby. It's not cute. It's not cuddly. It doesn't make you have the feelings of being near your baby. And so it's not as good at getting milk out as your baby is. So what do you need at work? Just some quick basics of things to talk about with your boss, hopefully even before you have your baby, so you can be prepared and be reassured that you're going to have a way to get milk for your baby after baby's here. So In your space to pump at work, you need ideally a locking door so you can have your private space. It might be a closet, that's okay, but it really needs to not be a bathroom. That's unhygienic. You wouldn't make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a bathroom for you to eat. Don't prepare your baby's lunch in a bathroom. You need an electrical outlet, but that kind of depends on your pump. Some pumps have batteries that can be charged, so you can just charge it every night when you take it home. Other pumps need to be hooked up right there. So if you don't have an electrical outlet there, it's not a no-go. You could run an extension cord into the room, or you could make sure that your pump has a battery pack or a way to charge it. You need to have a chair. You need to be comfortable. You can't stand up or even sit on the ground really while you're pumping. You need to have a chair. And you need to have a sink somewhere nearby. It doesn't have to be in that same space, but a sink that you can clean your pump parts in is a reasonable request for you to have. As for time that it's going to take, usually about 20 minutes every 2 to 3 hours is what's recommended for keeping your milk supply up. If that sounds overwhelming, remember that you can come in a little bit early to work and pump then. You can pump during your lunch hour. You can pump right after work to try to bump up your supply a little bit, especially if you have a bit of a drive before you'll see baby anyway. So it's workable. Don't give up. You can find a lactation consultant near you. You can come in and see me. We'll find a way to make this work. Another really good resource, especially here in Colorado Springs, is the Colorado Breastfeeding Coalition. I wrote their website down here. They're particularly awesome at resources in Colorado. They have the laws on their website and in this handy booklet of supporting breastfeeding at work. This is made for employers. And they actually have a grant going on right now where if an employer wants to find out more about how to provide a better space for lactating mothers in their environment, that they will provide supplies sometimes or at least a good review of what they have so far to see how they can make things better for their employees. So this is a really cool, helpful book about how an employer can help a mom to reach her breastfeeding goals, which is beautiful. And that website has those resources and more, and you can contact them if you're interested in that grant for your workplace. But hopefully that gets you an idea of how pumping might work if you're a pregnant or beginning to breastfeed mom. If you have any questions, again, post them in the comment section down below. Let me know what else you want to hear about breastfeeding, what other questions you have, and I'll be sure to make more of these in the future. Thanks.